It is Tuesday morning, 5:47 a.m., and the sun is just beginning to rise over the red sandstone cliffs of northern Arizona. You are standing on the walkway of the Glen Canyon Dam, feeling the subtle vibration of millions of gallons of water pressing against the concrete. Usually, this vibration is a hum, a sign that the massive turbines deep inside the structure are generating power for the grid. But today, the vibration feels different. It is a low-frequency shudder, like a heavy train passing deep underground. You check your seismic monitors on the tablet, and you see a spike that shouldn't be there, originating from a fault line 3 miles away. Suddenly, a deafening crack echoes through the canyon, louder than a gunshot, as a hairline fracture appears on the face of the dam. Welcome to the Dam Collapse Simulation, where we explore the catastrophic failure of the American Southwest's water infrastructure. In this scenario, we analyze the physics of a cascade failure, where the collapse of one dam triggers the destruction of everything downstream. To understand the scale of this disaster, you have to realize that the Colorado River is not just a river. It is a machine. It is a strictly controlled industrial plumbing system that keeps 40 million people alive in a desert that naturally supports almost no one. The Glen Canyon Dam holds back Lake Powell, a reservoir containing 24 million acre-feet of water, weighing approximately 30 billion tons. This water is held back by a curved wall of concrete that was poured in the 1960s and is now aging, brittle, and stressed. Let's enter the simulation through the eyes of Sarah, the chief structural engineer at Glen Canyon, who is currently staring at the crack. She grabs her radio to declare a condition red, but before she can speak, the floor beneath her feet lurches violently to the left. The structural integrity of the keyway, the slot in the canyon wall that holds the dam in place, has just been compromised by the seismic shift. Water, under immense hydrostatic pressure, forces its way into the crack, acting like a hydraulic wedge that splits the concrete apart. In Block 10, the impossible happens. The entire left abutment of the dam shears off, and the wall of water begins to move. A slice of the reservoir, 700 feet tall, pushes through the breach with the force of 1,000 freight trains speeding at once. The sound is not a splash. It is a roar that physically hurts your ears, a sonic boom of liquid energy released instantly. Sarah watches helplessly as the steel penstocks, the massive pipes that feed the turbines, are twisted like aluminum foil. Downstream, the Colorado River usually flows at a gentle 15,000 cubic feet per second, a manageable stream for rafters and fish. Right now, the flow rate has spiked to 10 million cubic feet per second, a wall of water moving at 50 miles per hour. The initial surge wave creates a bore, a vertical face of water 400 feet high, scraping the canyon walls down to the bedrock. Ancient sandstone formations that have stood for millions of years are pulverized into sand in a fraction of a second. The town of Page, Arizona, sits on the plateau above the dam, so the residents are safe from the water, but not from the shaking. The release of energy creates a localized earthquake that shatters windows and cracks foundations for 20 miles. By minute 5, the water has reached the famous Horseshoe Bend, filling the iconic loop completely and overflowing the rim. Tourists who were taking sunrise photos are forced to run for their lives as the canyon floor disappears beneath a churning brown sludge. This is the beginning of the domino effect, because water is heavy, and it is moving toward the next obstacle in its path. 300 miles downstream sits the crown jewel of American engineering, the Hoover Dam, holding back Lake Mead. The Hoover Dam is bigger and stronger than Glen Canyon, but it was never designed to catch an entire ocean falling on its head. Engineers at Hoover Dam received the warning call from Sarah. The dam is gone. You have 4 hours before the water hits you. This creates a terrifying mathematical problem. Lake Mead is already 40% full, and there is nowhere to put the water coming from Lake Powell. They open the emergency spillways, massive tunnels drilled into the rock, to try and drain the lake before the surge arrives. The spillways scream as water jets out of them at 120 miles per hour, creating cavitation bubbles that tear chunks of concrete out of the tunnels. But draining the lake is like trying to empty a bathtub with a teaspoon while a fire hose is blasting into it. By hour 3, the surge wave from Glen Canyon has traveled through the Grand Canyon, turning the national park into a violently flooded gorge. Rafting expeditions, hiking trails, and ancient archaeological sites are erased from history, buried under 50 feet of mud. By hour 4, the water arrives at Lake Mead, slamming into the calm surface of the reservoir with the force of a meteorite impact. The water level in Lake Mead rises not by inches, but by feet every single minute, climbing up the white bathtub ring on the cliffs. The Hoover Dam is an arch-gravity dam designed to hold pressure from the front, pushing it into the canyon walls for strength. But as the water overtops the dam, pouring over the roadway, it begins to erode the rock at the base of the structure. This is called scouring, where the falling water digs a hole at the toe of the dam, undermining the foundation. At 10:14 a.m., the structural limit of Hoover Dam is reached, and the massive concrete arch begins to tilt forward. When Hoover fails, it is a catastrophe of biblical proportions. The combined volume of 2 massive reservoirs is released at once. This is 50 million acre-feet of water, enough to cover the entire state of Pennsylvania in a foot of liquid. The water creates a mega-flood that has not been seen on this continent since the last ice age ended 10,000 years ago. Directly downstream lie the casino towns of Laughlin, Nevada, and Bullhead City, Arizona, sitting right on the riverbanks. There is no time to evacuate. The warning sirens blare for only 10 minutes before the 200-foot wave obliterates the skyline. Casinos, hotels, and neighborhoods are swept away instantly, turning into debris that adds mass and violence to the flood. By hour 6, the Davis Dam and Parker Dam, smaller structures downstream, are simply stepped over by the water like speed bumps. Lake Havasu, home to the relocated London Bridge, is destroyed, and the bridge is washed away for the second time in its history. But the collapse of the dams is not just a water story. It is an energy story that plunges the West into darkness. Hoover and Glen Canyon generate 4,000 megawatts of cheap, reliable hydroelectric power for the Southwest grid. The moment the turbines are crushed, the frequency of the Western interconnection drops, triggering automatic safety shutdowns. Las Vegas goes dark instantly. The neon lights of the Strip flicker and die as the baseload power vanishes. Los Angeles loses 15% of its power supply, triggering rolling blackouts that trap millions of people in elevators and subways. Hospitals switch to diesel generators, but they only have fuel for 48 hours, and the roads are gridlocked with panic. By day 2, the floodwaters reach the Imperial Valley in California, the salad bowl of the United States. This region grows 80% of the nation's winter vegetables, relying on irrigation canals fed by the Colorado River. The flood destroys the canals, filling them with toxic sludge, salt, and debris, rendering the farmland unusable. The immediate consequence is a food security crisis. The price of lettuce, broccoli, and carrots quadruples overnight. But the most terrifying long-term consequence is the death of the water supply for 25 million people. The Colorado River Aqueduct, which carries water to San Diego and Los Angeles, runs dry because the intake pumps are destroyed. Phoenix and Tucson, cities built in the middle of a desert, rely on the Central Arizona Project Canal for their survival. Without the dams to regulate the river, there is no water to push into the canal, and the taps in Arizona begin to sputter. By day 7, the floodwaters have dissipated into the Sea of Cortez, leaving behind a landscape of utter devastation. The Grand Canyon is stripped of vegetation. The river channel is wider, deeper, and completely unrecognizable. The reservoir at Lake Powell is empty, revealing a muddy, alien landscape of drowned canyons that haven't seen the sun in 60 years. Inside this mud is toxic sediment, heavy metals, pesticides, and runoff that settled at the bottom of the lake for decades. As the mud dries, the wind picks up this toxic dust, creating poisonous dust storms that blanket Utah and Arizona. This is the toxic bowl, a modern version of the Dust Bowl, but with arsenic and lead mixed into the sand. By month 1, the reality of the new arid era sets in for the millions of refugees fleeing the Southwest. Las Vegas has no water source. Lake Mead is gone, and the intake pipes are hanging uselessly in the air above a muddy creek. The real estate market in Nevada and Arizona collapses to zero. A house with no water connection is worth nothing. This triggers a climate migration of 5 million people moving north and east, overwhelming cities like Denver and Salt Lake. The legal fallout is a civil war of lawsuits between the 7 states that share the river rights. California sues Arizona. The Native American tribes sue the federal government. Farmers sue the cities. The law of the river, the complex set of agreements that governed water usage for a century, is washed away with the dams. Without the storage capacity of the reservoirs, the Southwest can only support a population of maybe 5 million, not 40 million. By year 1, the region begins to look like the ruins of an ancient civilization that expanded too far and collapsed. Skyscrapers in Phoenix stand empty, their pools filled with sand, their golf courses turning back into cactus scrub. The Army Corps of Engineers proposes rebuilding the dams, but the cost is estimated at $1 trillion and 20 years of labor. And there is a bigger problem. Climate change means there might not be enough snowpack to fill the reservoirs again anyway. The simulation reveals a harsh truth. We built a civilization in a desert based on the assumption of permanent control over nature. We assumed the concrete would last forever and that the water would always be there on demand. But concrete has a lifespan, and nature always seeks the path of least resistance and maximum chaos. The dams were a battery, storing the energy of the river, and that battery just discharged 60 years of energy in 6 hours. The collapse of the dams forces the United States to abandon one of its fastest-growing economic regions. It is a retreat from the frontier, a shrinking of the map, and a humbling lesson in physics. We learn that water is not just a resource. It is a god that gives life and takes it away without mercy. The Sun Belt becomes the Thirst Belt, a cautionary tale for future generations about building beyond your means. So look at the light switch in your room and look at the glass of water on your desk. Trace the wire and the pipe back to their source, and you might find a wall of concrete holding back a monster. If that wall cracks today, do you have a plan for when the power fades and the tap runs dry? Or are you betting your life that the engineers calculated everything perfectly in 1960? Tell me in the comments, do you live downstream from a dam, and do you know the evacuation route? I'll see you in the comments, assuming you are on high ground.